Hi guys, this is German Prepper. In today's video we're going to be taking a look inside what I call the bunker. Now, might not look pretty, but we are underground. We have solid concrete walls around us, earth packed, to one side here. This was a window that if you looked right up the top you could see a bit of daylight, but we've blocked this off with concrete from the outside, so no way in there. Right, so let's take a look at what we've got. You may have seen in a previous video we had some water stores, and these containers are all down here now. I'd estimate currently there's about 2 months worth officially. I think if it came to it you'd make it last 3 months, certainly with the other liquids we'll be finding in here, in the tins and things, it would be 3 months worth, I'd say. Now, over here we've got some gas canisters. I've actually got a delivery coming today of almost 100 additional ones, so we'll be filling these up. They allow us to cook with camping gas stoves. Got a MSR, is it Pocket Rocket, I think, and that's also pretty useful. So if we do have some kind of power cut, or if there's no more power for any reason, then we're able to cook inside. Obviously, we could be cooking outside, having a nice barbecue, or putting some wood on a fire outside. But I can imagine circumstances where either we need to take shelter underground inside, or we just don't want to be advertising that we've got lots of food and we're cooking outside every day. So in that instance, we've got this gas and the cooking stoves. Otherwise, we'd normally cook with electric upstairs, but that may not always be an option. So we just got some toiletries here. Probably not going to be using those in any serious situation, but yeah, they're there. We've got them stored up. You know, it's not just a nuclear war or some, Category 5 hurricane or whatever it is. There's also the possibility, far more realistic, that there's just going to be shortages of things, or we're going to suffer some kind of hyperinflation. Either way, this little collection here is probably a good idea. Now, again, we've got some aluminium foil here. Aluminium being, I believe, largely imported from Russia and Ukraine. So you can see why that might be a necessary prep in this day and age. Some toilet rolls there, but we do in fact have rather more toilet rolls over here. These are kitchen rolls, and these are toilet rolls. Now, I was just doing a quick calculation in my head yesterday. If we use one toilet roll a day, we've probably got about a year's worth here. Now, obviously, if you're on your own, you don't need that many. Perhaps a couple would just need a bit less. But if you've got lots of children, then you're going to need lots of toilet roll. And again, the kitchen roll is an anticipation of either it not being readily available, or perhaps, if we were down here surviving, then it might be the easiest way just to keep things clean. Anyway, back to further preps here. Razors. Here, I'd say don't forget this prep. It'd be rather easy to. Toothbrushes and toothpaste. Make sure you've got plenty in there. You never know when it's just not going to be available, and it's not something you can really be without. Here we've got a very important section, which is fire lighting. As you can see, we're not going to be running out of matches for a long time. And having different types of fire lighters, I think, is important. and also candles. You know, if we were for some reason without electricity or just simply having to stay underground, then candles, having one of those to light through the night and obviously through the day possibly, could be rather important. We've got a bit of a medical up here, not very much currently, just the essentials of painkillers, and yes, you will see this just in case it's needed for a worse situation. I'll let you look that one up for yourselves. Up here, not necessarily needed in an emergency, but these things are necessary in the long term to keep things clean, keep things tidy. And again, this is not just a collection of items for doomsday, for the worst possible emergency. It's also a hedge against things not being available and inflation. And we've done rather well with price rises of 50%, literally 50% in the last week in Germany at the supermarket. That's basically a 50% return on money spent on hoarding items like these. I use that word hoarding. It's not hoarding, it's being sensible. It's sensible prepping. Here we've got probably our only truly long-term food. This is by Ration One, some bread that I basically chose this company because they produce this 10-year bread. Now, you really can't get this anywhere else. You could buy some tin bread that would be good for a year, maybe 2 years, but this is literally sold as 10-year bread, and it's been pretty good so far, having tried some. So that's that. Now down here we've just got some, well, obviously you can't be in any SHTF situation without Tabasco sauce, and I'm not prepared to be without that, it coming from America, so started to stock up. I'm thinking I probably need to go and buy a lot more of that. Wipes, I can think of some situations where you'd be using something like that and you'd be very grateful to have plenty of those, especially with small children. Here we've got some general spices, all packaged up. Most of these on the packet will say they're good for somewhere between 3 and 4 years. I think in reality they're probably good for an indefinite period. Right, over here we've got a bit of space. I've just put this shelf in recently, so we've started to fill it. If I see any particular gaps in preps, I'm quite likely to go and quickly purchase those and get them in here as soon as possible. Here we've got flour, currently rationed in Germany. I can't go and buy more than 2 of these in the supermarket, and that's assuming they actually have any. All the ones I've been to recently, Lidl, Aldi, Rewe, if I'm saying that correctly, probably not, they've all been without. And it's a pretty serious situation. Again, sugar is also something we're seeing run on at the moment, possibly just people hoarding, but it is disappearing, mostly empty shelves. Here's one of my favourites, cocoa. I don't think any of us would want to be without that in any situation, so we've stocked up. Given that this comes from, one of perhaps only 2 countries in the world, and generally in Africa, maybe some small production in South America, I think this is one you should all stock up on. Here we've got popcorn corns, so it's for popping. You make popcorn with it, and these are excellent, I think. I can't imagine anything more important than being in an SHTF situation and being able to have popcorn. Now, generally we've got plenty of tinned food here, a lot less than I'd like. I mean, we've aimed for a year's supply of food here, and I don't think we've reached it yet. I think we're well over the 6-month mark, and we'd be perfectly comfortable eating normally. I think after that, we'd probably have to be careful, it'd be a restricted diet. I'm sure it could get to a year, but it wouldn't be as pleasant at that point. Lots of salt there. It's not that you'd be lacking salt in your diet eating all these tinned foods. I expect there's probably plenty in there. But salt is something that has to be transported quite far here in Germany. It comes from certain mountain areas. In fact, historically that was a serious trade, was transporting salt. So I can imagine a situation where, again, with transport problems or any other kind of interference, World War III comes to mind at the moment, this would be a precious resource around this particular area. Now, plenty of pasta here, and I do mean plenty. Now, this is what makes me think that, come what may, we would get to the year mark, even if it was just eating pasta. Certainly some rice there. I'd like a lot more rice, I think. Need to try and source some bigger bags from somewhere. We can still get it at the moment. Whereas pasta was completely sold out in 3 different supermarkets I went to this last weekend. So it's a bad situation here in Germany, and I can see it getting a lot worse. Here we've got some jars, and I like these oriental jars. They've got lots of different vegetables in there, lots of different nutrients, and I think that would be a lovely thing to have if you're in a bad situation and generally wanting to make a more interesting meal for yourself and your family. We've got plenty of tomato sauce here, possibly because one of my daughters absolutely loves it, and additionally because it's just the perfect complement to the pasta. Again, olives, I can imagine those going into. You've got some wok sauce there to go with that oriental food. And here's the kind of key items that I think everybody should have. Gherkins, I personally love eating those straight out the jar, but I think in a long-term situation, they're going to have vitamins that you're not going to be finding elsewhere. And these jars are probably good for 10 years plus. Although it only says 1 or 2 years on the packaging, of course. Potatoes. Now that's something you might start to grow yourself, but for the initial first year or two, I can't see everybody having lots of potatoes around. Down here we've got our oil collection. Now this is actually the first prep of mine that's become completely critical for us. Right now, we've reached SHTF on oil. There is no oil of any kind in any of the supermarkets here in Germany. I think it's probably panic buying, but we know that most of the sunflower oil comes from Russia and Ukraine, and the other types of oils are also significantly coming from those 2 countries. So I think that's also a major factor here. And I don't expect the situation to resolve. I think we're out. The best we might hope for is more olive oil from Greece and Italy, perhaps Spain. But again, I just don't think there's going to be enough to go around. I think us peasants at the supermarket, we're going to be the ones who simply don't get it. It's going to be going elsewhere, diverted to those who can afford it, and we won't be able to afford it. Now, this next section I think is pretty critical. You need to feel good about any situation you're in, and having chocolate, sweets of all kinds, and jam and honey are pretty essential. You don't want to be living through any hard situation with no comfort foods. So make sure you put some of these things back. Personally, I think you need this. That's a personal preference. Unfortunately, my children have already got in here, even though it's locked, and reduced our stores somewhat on that. Now, my personal favourite section. Wine and spirits. It goes without saying that if transport problems continue, if inflation continues, hyperinflation at this stage, these kind of things are going to become luxuries pretty soon. And by luxury, I mean things that we can't really afford, can't really get. I know there's no chance of that just yet, but I can imagine the day when it does happen, and of course there will be riots in the streets immediately. I can also imagine medical reasons for having these things around, not least when you have a sore throat. These delicious German spirits are excellent herb spirits. Something I highly recommend. Well, there we are. That was the bunker tour. I hope you've all got your cellar, or cellar, or back room, pantry fully stocked up, and you're ready to ride through 2022. It's not looking good so far. In fact, it's looking a lot worse than last year with all the COVID issues. So I hope you are stocking up now. And as I said, what I've just shown you here, this is 6 months for certain, a year with some serious rationing. And I think we all need this, and we all need to, if possible, do more than this. And the time to do it is still now. Food prices might have gone up 50% this week in Germany here, and I hear possibly up to about 30% in the US in the coming weeks. But it's only going to get worse. And you're going to look back on this time now as the time when you wished you'd bought more. Because most of these things aren't going to go off in a hurry. And they're all things that you use almost in your day-to-day life. If you do have a few extra gas canisters, well, if nothing ever happens, you can look forward to some future camping trips, and these are good indefinitely. So I recommend prep, and prep. Let's all get ready. If we all had this kind of store in place, there'd be a lot less to worry about in the coming years. Thanks for watching.